So, welcome back to the waiting. I forgot the name of it. The waiting list. After a 2-week hiatus, 3-week hiatus. Thank you, Jet. Was it 3 weeks?
3 weeks since you get here.
Oh, I'm back. I don't think it has been 3 weeks. It's been 2 weeks, isn't it?
It's last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and then.
But I was
yeah,
there the week.
Yeah, It's just.
Oh, it has been 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, we'll start again. Hello and welcome back to the waiting list. After a 3-week hiatus, obviously I've just been out in the City of Angels, Los Angeles, and before we start, we have to, of course, say thank you to the RTF for letting us use their space here. And again, all the links will be below for all the great things they do. So let's just kind of get into it. I mean, we've already been talking for a while. First of all, how are you, Emmanuel?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks.
All right, quick answer from Emmanuel there. He's good. He's good.
Always a chatty person.
Yeah, exactly. We've just been talking. Yeah, exactly. You've just been talking for the past 2 hours, but
Yeah.
what's been going on?
Do you want the whole story?
Well, that's why we're here.
Oh, okay. What's been going on? Well, I'm pretty busy. Scaling up. I'm working on scaling up the startup. I founded some 2 years ago, leveraging tech within mental health, and more specifically, leveraging tech within corporate well-being, with the intention of having a much more preventative approach and a much more data-driven approach to supporting the well-being and the growth in general of individuals. Consequently, the aim is to have companies be as productive as possible. And I have a vision of founding a unicorn. And I think London.
I have a dream of finding a unicorn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, for those who don't know, but you know what's a unicorn?
I have no idea. You said that earlier, and me and Jimmy got stuck.
Oh well, a unicorn is a company that's valued at $1 billion US dollars or pounds. It's just a company who's worth $1 billion, and they're called unicorns because
So you want to make
for the
billions?
obvious. Well, it's not. Ultimately it's not about that. I just think that there's a better way of doing things. And I just can't help myself but to, when I see a problem, want to address it. And ultimately, when my time will be up, know that I will have contributed to the best of my abilities to make the planet a better place. And that's really the bottom line. Took me a while to figure that out. And I think that using data and translating individuals' aptitudes and knowledge and leadership styles and areas of growth and strengths into mapping that into a psychometric profile using neuroscience-based assessment and psychometric assessment tools in a gamified way. I think that would be to the benefit of the user, because ultimately we don't know ourselves all that well. And I would even say that had I known more about myself when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have made that many mistakes, or I would have been guided a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, let's not give away the idea.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Another thing is ideas. There's plenty of billion-dollar ideas out there. It's all in the execution. It really is. So no, to the contrary, I will speak about it to as many people as possible, and I will ask for the harshest criticism. And the more pushback people give me, the more they point to difficulties or areas where they would hesitate to go along with the story. The more I appreciate that. I don't having kind of, how do you call them? The yay sayers, those who say, "Oh, great idea, chief." You
The
should
yes
have
man. Yeah.
the yes man. That will amount to nothing.
But if anyone does have money out there and wants to invest, we're good.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, so I have that vision, so I'm working on that. I'm working on scaling up the company. Again, I founded a couple of years ago and has been growing steadily. But I think that there's a vision where we just leverage tech, we leverage indeed AI. It's not a buzzword. I think AI is part of this fourth revolution, technological revolution, after having had the industrial one. So that's what, that's the carrot that I'm chasing. And it enthuses me, gives me great energy and motivation, and so I'm all in. I've got the bit stuck between my teeth, as they say.
And that's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
And make your $1 billion.
Yeah,
Your
or
unicorn.
not, really.
Or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's all very, very exciting.
Mhm.
And I think it could genuinely, well, if it could help people, that's great.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
So, and plus the money, if it ever makes any money. But it's more about, helping people.
But it's a funny thing, because I've always struggled to understand this concept of when you see founders and they're like, it wasn't about the money, and then you see the trajectory that they've been on, where they've recuperated shares and did all sorts of kind of not murky stuff. It's all legal, but
we should just say as well, there is some work going on outside, just in case people
I didn't
hear.
even know, yeah.
I just heard the hammering.
Yeah.
So we might have
There
to.
seems to be something every time we have a podcast, isn't it? Are they having
Jamie's
meetings
falling
and
asleep.
Jamie's falling asleep. Is using his phone amidst mindfulness exercise, or the phone's ringing.
Or tapping his leg.
I just can't focus.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll focus.
Like,
But anyway, that's the just in case that there is any.
I was going to say one thing quickly. You know, dark it is.
Yeah, why has it gone so dark?
Yeah.
I think maybe if it rains, well, there's another problem.
That's
Yeah, rain. but
Climate
not
change.
outside.
Why would you hear the rain? We're on the. Huh? You think?
I think we're going to have to cut this bit out, but okay.
Nah,
No, so I was saying, I've never really bought into the story about people who.
It's not about the money.
It was never about the money. It was about changing the world in a better, like, be it Steve Jobs or whatnot. But I can honestly, hand on heart, say it's the first time where, because I've tried to set up stuff in the past and it was always well intentioned, but somehow I did think about the money. I did think about, this could be a big idea, and then I could be, rich.
Have you thought about it with this?
No.
Oh, okay, that's good.
No. And so that's the first time, and again, hand on heart, where I'm like, yeah, of course it doesn't need to plummet, but I believe in the vision. I think it will, help people. It will, level the playing field when it comes to recruitment. The hope is that...
Wait, no, I was talking about the podcast.
Well, the podcast is the same thing.
But have you thought about the financial...
Like
when you look at the Joe Rogans and things like that?
No.
Have
You may, but no, I've never done. But I for those who don't know, I don't get paid.
Yeah,
and
neither do I.
Yeah, neither do I.
We're just losing money here.
Well, it is what it is. But no. I would hope, again, it has a decent reach and we help people. But I've never set out on this mission to
make millions.
No. And neither do I think it will lead to making millions. Maybe you have that hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also a good segue into Los Angeles, which we were just talking about as well, which is the constant drive to, people go to that place where I've just kind of got back from and I really noticed it. People go with the intent of becoming famous and becoming rich. And it's the first time I'd really ever seen that. This kind of pretending of wealth as well, where everyone, I was told while I was there, which was a very good trip, thank you for asking, bastard.
We'll get to it, but we did speak about it.
But you're either a billionaire or broke, and all the broke people are pretending to be rich, and it's this like desperation for money. And when first of all they're living in an extremely expensive place, it makes no sense that you would try and live there to save money.
Is it currently more expensive? Just food.
It's insanely
It's insane
expensive.
in the States.
We went at a meal for 2 people, 350 quid. Well, dollars. So that would be what, £300?
It's like 75%. So it's
Well, yeah, it's crazy. Plus, you've got to pay your tax on your tip on top,
Yeah.
which is 20%, which I couldn't, as a British person, understand at all.
I've got a question actually.
Go on.
After just working in that kind of industry, is their wage completely tipped?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're on a low minimum wage, and then
Do you know what it is?
no. Actually, that's not particularly true. Where we were staying in West Hollywood, they've got the highest minimum wage in the US. But as soon as you leave West Hollywood, it's extremely low, and they live on their tips. Anyway, it's a strange place. But in terms of like, I think what you were just talking about with financial gain, and maybe not just financial gain, but this thing of like fame, of like this like attention. It's really interesting that people go there with that idea in mind. Not I'm gonna try and make the best thing I can, or like with this, we're let's try and genuinely help people. They go there for a very different reason. And as I have to keep on saying, I met some really, really nice people there, but there's this kind of desperation in people's eyes there that I hadn't really seen before, especially in the industry as well. Like I've seen people over here struggling and having to work side jobs and things like that who work in, film, TV, theatre, whatever it is, kind of entertainment, because it is a tough industry. But over there, it's a different ball game. It's I don't know. It was eye-opening, I think, to say the least.
But do you think that the goal ultimately is to be famous? End of the line. It's not that they have such a passion for acting that they're willing to put everything on the line to then make it into the industry.
I think with all the new social media stuff, I mean, you're talking about film specifically and TV, but I think with all the social media stuff, it's more about you can essentially do anything and get attention from it. You can be as crazy as you like. I mean, all you have to do is, look at certain if you want to call them creators, not that they really create anything, but they just do crazy stuff.
Which is highly entertaining to watch sometimes.
Of course. But
what kind of crazy things are you talking about? Because
I mean,
like,
I'm not going to...
talk about like the Red Bull athletes being crazy.
No, but that's like a skill, skydiving, whatever, those types of things. But I also think, personally, I think you can see that the actors over here, when we're talking about film and TV specifically, the actors over here are, I believe, much better than American actors on scale, on average, because there's this massive kind of interest in theatre here in West End. So a lot of actors go in kind of caring about the craft and acting itself and loving it. And I think it's probably half and half over there.
Is that not the same thing in New York?
They don't really have any drama schools. There's Broadway, and there are musical theatre people, but more people in theatre here also go into TV and film. If you're in musical theatre and things in Broadway, you don't really go into TV and film. You kind of go to New York for theatre, LA for film and TV. But yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around the place itself. But as I said to you, you could see desperation in people's eyes that I hadn't really seen before. Because I think also when you're here in this country, you don't work in the industry I'm in, and my family are in, Jamie's in, and all these other things. You don't meet as many people that work in it. And we live nearer studios, and we know a few people that work in and around the area, but not really. There, everyone's in the industry. music, modelling, fashion, TV and film, social media, everyone. Anyone that works in a hotel, in a restaurant, you're either there or you're born and bred in LA. No one's there for any other reason. Which is, so everyone's working towards this goal. So they'll see their peers or someone shoot up in fame and get a viral video, and it's like a whole weird social thing, which is really interesting to watch.
And how do you think it affects, their mental health, or because you've had an insight into the backstage, if you want, isn't it? Obviously, there's us using social media who see what these influencers want to portray towards us. But you've mingled with the crowd a little bit. You've been...
Yeah, I mean, while I was out there, I met, people who would be classed as influencers and have got high followings and things like that.
But what's the despair you refer to? Is it despair for fame, or is it despair for, I don't know how I'm going to pay for rent by the end of the month?
Both.
Yeah.
I think both of like, when am I going to make it? When am I going to make it? Because you don't see anyone who's past the age of 40 who's still struggling in the industry. They're either not there or they're well known. So it's like, the people who haven't made it by the time they're 40, they kind of leave. So it's a lot of young kids running around who are like kind of desperate. They work 4 jobs. They make TikToks on the side. They're doing a podcast. They're this, they're that. They're doing auditions. They're running. There's like a hustle to it. So I kind of also respect it. But yeah, it's I think the desperation, is the, when am I going to make it? When, whatever that is, I don't think it really matters whether it's going to be you winning an Oscar or you having 10 million followers on TikTok or this or that.
Well, isn't that the issue, is that the goalpost isn't clear to begin with. It keeps on moving. Yeah.
Well, I think before it used to be you win an Oscar or you win a Grammy or whatever, the music equivalent was, or you're a model and you do a supermodel. Yeah, you do a big promo thing. Now it's like having 10 million followers. For some people, you have no idea who they are still. There's people that I'd met out there with massive followings, never heard of them, didn't know who they were, which is really weird. Can you stop eating crisps? Because that's really off-putting. But yeah, it's weird.
Okay.
Really, really strange. And mental health-wise, it can't be healthy.
I assume.
It because you also don't really see any progression either. Because you might get an audition for something and never get it, but the audition, I don't know. It's really, really weird to see. And also a place that is revolved around one thing. It's not like, I've got friends here who work in banking or work in accounting and do, they work in hotels or they work in, everyone's got different jobs. Over there, everyone just does the same thing. So it's a competition. It's, or it's competitive. It's weird. Yeah.
But strange, because you would think that the more competition, the higher the higher the quality of the output is. If they're all vying for, the same job, you would think that the quality of acting and actors over there is the highest anywhere in the world. Why? Because of that, competition. It applies to sports just the same. Yeah. So yeah.
They're not there for the right reason.
They're not there for the right reason. Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I think, as well as the conversation I had with my dad while I was over there, is that if you're stuck in that ecosystem or that world, so let's say LA, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, that whole thing, and you see that every day, that's just your life. You kind of see the same people. it's not like they really leave that area because they're all trying to find work in that area. So I live in London, so I've got my views on London, but I also live, I don't live in London. I come into London, but I also live just outside of London, so you see the differences there. And then, I can jump into Europe whenever I like. 'Cause it's
Okay.
And I think when I'm explaining this really badly, but
No,
do you understand what I mean?
But I mean, it's quite an artificial
I think
word. It's
that,
above
it's artificial.
Yeah.
That they're all creating the life they think they should be, as in TV, film, things like that. When it's very much just a tiny little ecosystem that's been surviving for 80 years, I think, just over 100 years, really. But you can also see that with their opinions on things, because they've got the same opinions as everyone else.
Or so they claim. Yeah.
Exactly. But here, I think people, everyone's from different places, got. Yeah.
Well, sure, but there is an increasing tribalism in Europe as well, reflected on and through social media. I think people tolerate divergent opinions less well than they did 20 years ago. Again, my understanding is when I grew up, we were meant to have disagreements. It was encouraged by our teachers, and there was richness in having divergent viewpoints come together, and that kind of conflict creating synergy. And we all understood that there was no such a thing as the truth, but together and through opposing views, we did create some synergy, and somehow in that moment that was the way to follow. And then
you find the common ground even though you disagree.
You find the common ground, and obviously the context never remains the same, so you may have a certain opinion on a certain topic at a certain point in time. It doesn't therefore mean that a couple of years down the line, 5, 6, a decade, you would still hold that same view. Why? Because context change. Obviously technology has increased, has entered our lives, and so on and so on. But now I find that people just in general tolerate opposing views, or far less than at least my memory.
I mean, I think the best example is, and I wasn't actually going to bring it up, but I said it to you earlier, was the thing about the debate, the presidential debate, which was when I spoke to, I don't know, probably 15 different people while I was out there, just asking questions about, I don't really know American politics very well. I don't really even know how it works, to be completely honest. But the general view, every view, while I was there, from every person that was living in LA, was it does not matter. By the way, I don't like Donald Trump. I'm not a Trumpite or whatever you call it. But it was whatever we must do to not let Donald Trump win, we will do. And they were like, I've said, well, Joe Biden's obviously, really old, and I don't think really knows what he's doing at this point. I think he's being led by other people. Just from what I saw on a debate. And they basically just said, it does not matter. If he cannot walk, cannot speak, cannot move, it doesn't matter if he's on his deathbed, he's better than Donald Trump. And I was kind of like, that's an interesting opinion to have. And out of 350 million people, however many people there is in America, there is no one better than, a narcissist billionaire who's also nearly 80, or, a man who's going to be 86 or something by the time if he gets in, and who's just, they should both be retired, sitting by a beach doing something. How out of a country of 350 million people, there isn't anyone. For a population like that, I don't think that can be very good for your mental health. You're looking at these two guys being like, we've got to pick between these two people. Which is, again, very interesting.
Yeah, sure, but if anything, it points to the issues within the system. It doesn't reflect America as a country, but yeah, it's just a reflection of a political system that maybe is, I don't want to say run its course, but over time, you know, the difficulties have been compounded. I think the lobbyism is for sure an issue in the States.
Do you mean when you say lobbyism, do you mean like the money in politics?
So yeah, I mean, in the States, most of the laws that are put to the Congress and the Senate are driven through, you know, and by lobbyists, so representing, you know, it could be a corporate interest, but it could, you know, could be interests of all sorts. Whereas here in the UK, there is lobbyism through special interest groups and other kind of think tanks, but it's not in the same direct manner as it is in the States.
It's not just like them being bought off.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But this being a podcast about well-being, I think politics just affect us is one of the factors and the variables that do impact us, and we know that, you know, be it the fear that people have about, you know, the climate and the state of the environment, or the wars, or indeed, you know, Trump v Biden and right v left. We know it has a negative impact, especially on the youth, and we know that's, amplified through social media. But I was keen to trace back where we left things off in terms of OCD. And so the last podcast we did, you were here and you said, "Oh, I feel quite nervous," you know, the anticipation of going abroad, letting go of that control, going into an environment that I'm not familiar with, and I have my habits and, you know, my compulsions. I'm not sure how this will pan out, basically. So I'm keen to hear, in that regard, how your journey has been.
I mean, I think the last few times I've been away, when I've gone away with myself and things like that, over the last year or so, I came back a lot more, you know, with a lot of OCD kind of pushed to the wayside, loads of things. This time it hasn't happened as much, I think, because I had the access to be able to go into shops and buy hand wash and mouthwash, and I could kind of wander around, you know, free will. Just kind of, when, you know, I've been to other places, you don't have as much access to it, but we were literally on, like, you know, we're on Sunset Strip, so it was like there's a lot of stuff around to just, I can go and wander around and get stuff. From, you know, that's probably the last time I saw you, I was getting more and more worked up about, you know, the E. coli thing that was going around with I think finding out in different foods and whatever. I knew in the days leading up, my routines, whether that be tapping or touching this and, you know, washing my hands and using mouthwash and this and that, was going to build up. I don't think it was probably as bad as I thought it was going to be. But, you know, maybe that's because I wasn't going by myself and, you know, I was just a bit more comfortable. Like the night before, I think I was, you know, making sure things were lined up a bit more and checking things a bit more and just overdoing things. But as I said to you, you know, as soon as I kind of got on the flight and I don't have any control, I can't fly a plane, I can't force the pilot to put it down, I can't do anything. You're kind of out of control. They had hand wash on the plane. I washed my hands more than I should have on the plane.
And had you tracked your anxiety? How did it go? So
Okay,
my assumption would be that the anticipation of going, that this was the highest. So the week preceding your flight, from the podcast to a couple of days later, you taking the plane. My assumption would be that your anxiety would have been highest at that moment.
What, like getting on the plane?
Up until indeed getting on the plane. But tell me a little bit about, if you were to track, if we had tracked your anxiety levels, how did that you know, go? How did that pan out?
I'd probably say the few days prior was its highest.
Okay.
And then when I actually got to the hotel, because when you're what would you call it, in transit, from me waking up at whatever time it was, like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and getting my bags and everything, there comes when you get to the airport and the guy touched Dad's passport and touched my passport and then put them together, and then I had to grab it off Dad. There's just nothing I can do. Like, I can't, we're about to go through airport security. I've got to put my stuff on the thingy. There's just nothing I can do. Like, I can't really fight against it. I can try and, touch things in a way and keep things there. But people start, it's just the way of it. So it's a lot of like mental capacity of me watching everything. But even once that was done, I'll go to the toilet, wash my hands. It obviously doesn't create the same effect of doing it at home, so it kind of relieves it almost. From the moment we were going to leave the house, I think Jamie had carried down my bag, and I watched him carry it where it was, and then I had to pick it up later on, and I knew that I'd picked. So it was kind of just like a relief of control, I think, is probably the best way to describe it.
But you were hyper vigilant. You were more vigilant than you would be.
No.
No.
Because I can't stand and wash my hands, as the plane's taking off.
Okay.
I can't, spend 20 minutes doing it. I can quickly run in, go to the toilet and quickly do it. But, I don't have the time to suddenly start messing around doing it.
And so, if I were to say to you, Sam, I have a plane ticket ready for you, and your plane leaves in 5 hours from Heathrow to LAX, but you're going by yourself this time. What goes through your mind?
I've got an interview next week, so I don't think I can. And, I don't really want to sit on a flight for 11 hours again when there's no need. It's much nicer weather.
But do you think that having gone now first time has,
dropped, definitely.
So your benchmark, so now you'd be up for it.
If
you would go by yourself.
If, let's say, next year, which is, a possibility if I've got the money, and things pick up over there, because work-wise, it obviously, as I say, it's very quiet.
No, but this is just hypothetically speaking to see if having exposed yourself to something you were quite afraid of, having tolerated the stress,
I would be much more comfortable.
You'd be much more comfortable.
Yes.
And you would envision going by yourself, flying by yourself.
I could definitely do that.
So what you're saying is that it makes sense to expose yourself to stuff that you're afraid to do in the first place, because your benchmark increases, or you tolerate just more distress.
Yes.
Okay.
It then becomes something you've done before, so it's like a memory. Like, you can go, I've done this before. However, if before I go next time, there's a bug flying around, or there's some big virus that changes the game again, because then it ups the levels. So I then be a lot more nervous about it. If that wasn't the case, and it was, you go, right, you're going to go stay at the same hotel, same place, but you're going by yourself, I could do that.
And since you're back, have you fallen back into your old routines?
Yes, almost instantly.
Almost instantly?
Which wasn't the case when I came back before. So when I'd been away, I'd been to Portugal, last year I'd been to Portugal, been skiing, I went to Sweden, I came back and there was like a delay. So it almost, the OCD behaviours had to build up again for me to get bored. But it was almost straight away. As soon as we got in the house, I was like, right, I'm going to go wash my hands, I need to go anti-bac my phone, I'm going to do this and that. I'd text Mum saying, could you either to get some gloves and things like that and whatever. And it's almost me going, right, no, I need to actually fight this.
And how do you make sense of that? So you've put yourself outside of your comfort zone. The assumption would be that if you come back to...
I'd be in better stead when I get back.
Well, whilst I'm saying that, I realise, no, Emmanuel, because context is a major, it's a major influencer, or it influences behaviour to a large extent. So ultimately, whilst I'm asking the question, I'm also saying, well, you know that context matters a lot. So had maybe Sam come back, and rather than going back to his room and his house that he knows and in his familiar surroundings, had he then moved into, let's say, a new flat, maybe, just maybe, being a new context, a new environment, you may not have gone back to your old compulsions. And then whilst I'm now saying this, I realize, well, Sam, you haven't stopped giving into your compulsions whilst you were away, so maybe that's also the reason why.
Yeah, I think it's because I was able to not give in.
You were able to not give in. Well, you're always.
No, as in there. I was, when I was in Sweden, I wasn't specifically near any shops. I couldn't go and buy things. When I was in Portugal, it was the same thing. I think also the amount of time as well. Those trips were shorter trips. I was there for a week. Sweden, I was there for a few days. Because this was 10 days, I think the first few days I was probably a bit more, I went out and bought hand wash and found some hand wash, and then that was kind of it. But then after a few days, I'd learnt the area, I knew where I was, I started to settle into routines quite quickly.
Has it impacted your ability to do something you needed to do? Like, have you not met with someone because your anxiety was too high?
While I was there?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, it's been fine. But just in terms of the amount of time it takes me to do things, it was like, And then as soon as we got back, I just went straight. And I kind of said to myself, right, when I get back, I'm going to start using my sink and tap again, because I've stopped using it because Dad put his finger on it. So I've been using the spare bathroom one. And I just haven't quite convinced myself to do that yet. I have also kind of broken the tap, so that kind of makes a bit of a difference. But yeah, I've just gone straight back into what I was doing before. I also think it's because I've got the time to be able to do it, because I'm at home. I don't kind of specifically need to be anywhere all the time. When I was out in LA, I was meeting people and out quite a lot. So yeah, it's annoying that I've gone straight back into that. And I do need to run for a wee. Can I go to the toilet real fast? Jimmy, can you pause it? And we're back after quite a long toilet break. That wasn't just on my part. That was Emmanuel. You got stuck in there.
Man's got to do what a man's got to do.
We can't quite remember what we were talking about.
Well, LA and OCD.
Yes,
Yeah,
it didn't.
so just
It didn't.
going back to your old habits.
It didn't get any. It hasn't got any better since I've been back. So I think it's again, just setting down and having to. I was hoping that when I come back, it would be that kind of thing of like, I'm off to a good start again, and I can start. I've knocked a load of them on the head, which wasn't the case. Still washing my hands, and this week straight away I've cut out the mouthwash after showering again, because it's just like give the mouthwash to Mum before I can even use it after a shower, because it was something I started doing in America. I bought mouthwash, and it was like, I don't trust this water, I'm going to start using mouthwash after I shower, which is obviously ridiculous. I mean, it's insane. It doesn't make any sense. So straight away I was like, right, I need to get rid of this one. Let's get rid of this one straight away. And I think it's just going to have to be, putting them down again and slowly going through them.
What do you think would have been helpful? I take it you and your therapist could have sat down, etched out the journey ahead, and come up with a plan so that you went into the experience as prepared as possible, and knowing what could be the pitfalls. What if this happens? How would you respond to it? How would you rather respond? What would you do to postpone at the very least, but ideally not give in to the compulsion and so on? It feels, listening to you, that ultimately you've gone in, you were so focused on
Getting
this
there.
binary choice of either I get there or I don't get there, that once you got onto the plane, there was no game plan. It was, now it's a day-to-day lived experience, and seems like your OCD just had free reign.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, didn't antibacterial on my phone or do things like that. But yeah, just washing hands was, my hands kind of cracked open and things. I wasn't washing them more, but I was just washing them more than I should have been, or that I would have done usually while I was away on holiday, just because it kind of had free reign.
Yeah.
So I don't think it. I think I was so concentrated on it. I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
Not thinking about when I'm there or anything like that. Which is, I'm happy I got there. I'm happy I got to experience it. The OCD didn't stop me from doing anything, which, you could say.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
positive. But it's also, I don't need to be doing all those things. So it's, I think, just combating. It's just tough to kind of settle down now and be like, right, let's, push on with it and pull back from certain things. Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at the positives. What would you say?
I went there. I got there.
You went there, but beyond that, ultimately for me, and I don't know if we recorded that or if this was, say, off-record remark, but I think it's part of the podcast, where I alluded to the value of going on a journey with your dad and having that time, away from the habitual context that you normally operate in, and what I would hope would be valuable father and son time.
Yeah, I think...
Did that materialize?
Yeah, our relationship, because I'd been away with him, when I was younger and things like that. But the going away with him now, where, we're both adults, or, you could class him as an OAP, I don't know. But to have, first, as I said to you, it was the most relaxed I've seen him in I don't know how long. He just sat by the pool and read all day while I was going off and meeting people and doing all sorts of things. And yeah, he was just completely chilled out, which was really, really nice to see. And then also we just had, normal conversations. It wasn't, us shouting at each other about him cleaning the kitchen or, doing that or whatever. And again, he did went straight back into it as soon as we got back. He was, cleaning the sink out and trying to empty dishwashers and doing all sorts. But while we were there, I would recommend anyone who, if you've got the chance to go away with your parents or parent, just you and them, it's, it's very, very good. I think for a relationship, I think like him and Jamie have a slightly different relationship. They don't really bicker as much, but me and him are very kind of similar in the sense of we can't be around each other for too long. But while we were away, there was no, like, we didn't even disagree on anything. It was just kind of smooth sailing.
And it's, listen, I've stated that word for word to clients, where I said, you can decide to either spend, let's say, 5K on continuing therapy, or you could actually go and travel. And I would advise you to do the latter. There's something inherently therapeutic about traveling. And I can't say how many times I've encountered that in therapy, where a client, we work on, establishing a more mindfulness way of being. We work on also, usually anxiety-based, mood-based disorders. And the client goes traveling, and then they come back, and I ask them the question about, tell me about your experience and how was it? And it's almost without fail that what we saw, well, not desperately, but what we try to achieve through therapy and requires conscious effort to obtain happens quite naturally when you travel. It's like the layers of an onion that you peel back, and
well, it takes away all those home comforts and all the...
Yeah, well, the context has a lot to do with it, but it's striking how changing the context suddenly has an impact on how you think about certain things and how often you think about them and how heavy certain topics feel or how big certain topics feel. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just it came to mind just as you were saying that. Sorry, I feel bad for interrupting now.
No, go ahead.
I went out for dinner with Dad and a load of people that he's very friendly with. And I didn't know any of these people. I knew one of them, you know, from when she's visited over here. And I was sat next to one of these actors' wives. I won't say her name. She's very, very lovely. And they've lived in, you know, Hollywood for a very long time. She's from New York originally. And I sat down next to her at the end of the table, kind of, you know, shoved aside while Dad and all his friends kind of got along. So it was kind of just me and her. And in 10 minutes, I had her crying. Her daughter has severe OCD where she could barely leave the house. She would trick her mum into doing like certain things. So she thought that because she was convinced her parents were going to die, and you know, and we sat down, started having a conversation. I asked, you know, what do you do? All the normal stuff. And I think I'd run off to the toilet and came back and apologised like I usually do. Sorry if I took too long, I've got OCD. She stopped dead and was like, did you say you've got OCD? I said, yeah. She's never met anyone with OCD other than her daughter. Only like psychologists and people like, as in like people that she's taken her daughter to. Her daughter's been in an inpatient thing for a few months, a little while back. You know, they were really worried about their daughter. I mean, like, she'd never met anyone with, you know, she'd heard of people saying, "Oh, I've got OCD, I count things."
But that's.
But to the point where, you know, where you've been in therapy and things like that. And there's some other things with their family as well, I think, that was probably a bit pent up. But she literally broke down in tears because she'd never have. So we sat the whole dinner and I was talking her through it and, you know, from another person's experience and this and that. And it was really weird to see because it was like everything that I'd put my mum through. Well, you could say Dad as well, but not so much. But mum specifically. And it was like she was saying about how it was like my daughter tries to trick me and tries to trick me into like promising her things and, you know, saying that everything's going to be, and it was all, and I was like, I do the same thing. And she was like, she couldn't believe it. She was really, really like, and it was.
And so why do you think what was the letting go of emotions, the crying about? Was it the fact that you gave her hope? Because there you were, having left London, was it the fact that she recognized or you made it,
well, she was like, you're so open. Like she was saying, like she was kind of saying like very open about it and this and that. And I just kind of went, yeah, because to me it's so normal. It's, you know, it's nothing really too different. It's just more of a frustration really. And
so it was relatable to her when you spoke of.
Well, I don't really know, but she just, as I say, they've had some other family issues that I found out about later on, which I think could have been a bit more pent up and kind of a release. But I think someone just to kind of talk to that isn't a psychologist or it's someone that,
And it makes me wonder, she's not in touch with any groups of parents who have kids with OCD and.
Not by the sounds of it.
That she goes on? Yeah, okay.
Not by the sounds of it. But it was really, really interesting, and I told her about what we were doing here and everything like that, and she was like, send me a link, and her husband's quite well known, so he was like, I'll put it all over my Instagram and things like that. So yeah, it was interesting to see someone react like that.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, it's always touching, isn't it, when you connect with someone and I guess you feel safe enough with you to let go.
Yeah.
You know, to just show that.
But it was also the first time that I kind of related to what her daughter, even though I think I can't remember specifically what the trigger was for her daughter. But a lot of the things that she did were very, very similar to me in terms of my little routines and tapping this and the, you know, what would you call it? When I get, you know, I say, "Mum, swear I won't get ill from this."
Reassurance.
Reassurance. The reassurance behaviour was, I think, really interesting to see another mum talking about it, and made me kind of go, "Oh wow."
Well, tell
That's
me
a
about that.
real
I think that's
effect.
interesting. How did that affect you? Hearing another mum's pain of living with a child who's in distress, who's struggling, who's hurting, and her as a mum not being able to get through to her daughter and you know,
Well, I
help
think
her
kind
in
of.
a hands-on way. Oh, that's not true. That she does help in a hands-on way, but
I think it's not knowing how to help.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know, I
It's
don't have kids,
disempowering, yeah.
but as a mother or father, but a mother, you know, that you want to just be able to do
Yeah.
and it, like, take away their problems. And I
Yeah.
think that's what
Yeah.
breaks my mum's heart, is she physically, there's nothing she can do to get rid of it. It's, you know, she almost has to trick me. She'll be like, "I'll make you a cup of tea if you don't go and wash your hands," which is, I think, quite a good way of doing it, because I like a cup of tea. And she makes a good cup of tea, so I'll be like, "All right, fine." Or not always. But yeah, it was.
But do you know? Because I mean, it's a
I
heavy
don't-
question.
I
Isn't it?
would
Because
never be
it
able
goes
to-
it goes to guilt, and but seeing obviously how sad this lady was because of the suffering that the family, you know, went through and perhaps still goes through as a result of her daughter's difficulties. Did that make you reconsider things? Did that make you feel guilty? Did that brought up shame? Or did you go, yeah, I do the same, or I can relate. It's not my fault, it's the OCD.
No, it made me probably relate to it. But also it made me take a step back, because, you know, listening to her talk about it, and I think obviously, you know, I don't know what it's like having children, but the stress of having to worry about that must be really difficult. And you could tell by her reaction that when she kind of started tearing up, I was like, "Oh, what have I done wrong?" I didn't realise quite what it was, but you could tell the kind of turmoil that she had been kind of put through. And I don't want to say by her daughter, but by the OCD itself. And yeah, and I think that's a reaction that, you know, when you look at Mum and my dad, they'd have two very different reactions. Dad would go, "Oh yeah, he's got OCD." Like, I wouldn't really be able to explain it, but Mum would probably have a very similar reaction to. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, so that kind of thing. But it was really interesting to kind of see the stress that's, you know, mums are great. We love our mums, but the amount that they kind of have to take on their shoulders from something like that, because they feel responsible for it.
That and everything. If you're lucky enough, you get to a point in life where it feels like you've been passed on a baton, like the Olympic torch, and it's just your time to carry it. Meaning, being a parent is a very one-sided relationship. Like, kids don't know to what extent, you know, parents kind of sacrifice themselves to provide as best as they can, to cater to the needs of their kids and offer them the best chances as possible in life. And that applies to the vast majority of parents. You do have the exceptions, but all over the globe, the vast majority of parents are in that boat. And it's quite a one-sided relationship. It's a one-way street.
I think for her as well, it would have been quite nice to hear me. I think, you know, her daughter sounded like she'd had, you know, I was trying to remember, she was like certain clothes and things that she couldn't wear and this and that. And then I started talking about mine, that, you know, I wouldn't eat food, I wouldn't leave the house, I wouldn't do it. And I think it's almost, not that I was trying to one-up it, but it was like, oh, this is even worse. You know, or even, you know, there's like a whole nother thing to it where I'm physically hurting myself to the point where my hands will hurt, not deliberately, but just from washing them, they will hurt, and I can't really stop myself. I'll just have to be like, I'm gonna have to get on with this and wash them more. And I think that for her, it's probably a good thing to hear, because it's like, oh, there's worse. It can be worse. I don't know, maybe.
But you can, Sam.
What?
You can hold yourself back from giving into the compulsion.
Yeah. Sure. No, I'm joking.
No, but you can, you have.
Yeah, I mean, as again, we were talking before this episode, and the thing of discipline.
Yeah.
I think was something that's really interesting, because you can't, I don't think, specifically tell someone who's going through something, you got to be disciplined, because if someone's got PTSD and they've been at war, you can't be like, you've got to be more disciplined about your thoughts.
Sure,
but I think being very specific to my issue is, I've had however many years of therapy. I know when I, leave my comfort zone, things usually feel a lot lighter when you have to do the second round, third, fourth, fifth round of whatever that is. And I think that my kind of trail of thought's just gone, but it's gone completely now. Fuck. Discipline. Thank you for letting me work that one out. For me, it seems to be a lot of the time down to discipline. To me really having to go against it, instead of finding the easy route out and kind of going, oh, it's, I'll do that one tomorrow. Or, I'll do this just for the night, just to make sure, I'll just tap this and do that and wash my hands just the extra little bit, instead of going, no, I'm fine. And I don't know whether that is discipline or that is the mental health, the OCD itself. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah. But with OCD,
because I can be very disciplined. I go to the gym every single day.
Yeah, sure, but that can be.
I can do all of those things, but so it kind of got me into a question of, again, I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, about the whole discipline thing and how, when is the time to really, I don't know. I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say. I wonder how much I could change myself. I'm sure I could change all of it, but
why don't you start writing it down, like every day? Like, I haven't done this.
Never give in. Well, that's kind of what we speak about in therapy.
So, I mean, there's a template for this. You know it. You write down your obsessions. You write down your compulsions,
and then you list it from top to bottom.
But importantly is to get, especially you mentioning the parents. If you live with your parents, you need to include those around you, because they're part of your routines. They're part of your compulsions. Quite a few of your compulsions, and you just alluded to it earlier on. You said, mom will make me do this, or I'll ask reassurance to mom. She needs to be part of that process and not give in to. And it's a really difficult thing to do for parents, not to come towards the distress of their child. So if you have a child that's in distress, it creates distress within the parent, and it's very difficult if you don't have sufficient awareness of what is going on. And you must be very aware, because if you're not, and most of us kind of go through our day-to-day lives on automatic pilot, you think you're responding to your child distress, but what you're actually doing is responding to your own distress. So whatever you then come up with as behaviors or responses are actually catering to the distress that you as a parent feel, not so much as what the child needs. And this starts at an early age. But it's incredibly difficult to sit with a child who's in distress, and as a parent to be told, well, you
And be like
actually,
stoic.
yeah,
and just,
you have to be stoic about it. You can't give any reassurance. You can't make it better in the moment. Why? Because if you do that on the long run, your child will fare better for it.
Yeah, I think the lady who I was just talking about had said that her daughter had, like woken up in the middle of the night to promise her something. I think it was something like that she'd like, things like that, which I've never done personally. But it's like that demanding of swear to me, and not that we mean anything by it. It's not like we.
Yeah, but then you need to remember, it's not you asking, it's the
It's
OCD
the
asking,
OCD.
and it's not me against you, it's you and me against the OCD. That's why you need the network to come to the network. When I speak of network, it's a bit of my kind of child and adolescent mental health service background that kicks in, but it's the parents, the teachers, the coaches,
It's
the
your team.
siblings, it's everyone who kind of gravitates around the person who has OCD, and it is necessary. It's not just an option. It's necessary to have them as part of the plan. They need to know swear to me this, swear to me that. All right, it's very difficult. You're in distress. You're crying. It's the middle of the night. It distresses me. My thoughts go off into the catastrophic consequence of this, or worst case scenario. But let's contain everything. Let's calm down everything. Let's remember it's you and I against the OCD, or it's us against the OCD.
I think we've got to end quite soon, but I don't know how long you've got.
No, so we're good for time.
Okay. Just a question that came to mind then would be, for a parent, like, my mum or this other lady that I'd met, when would be the time to give into it?
Never?
No, as in, I'm about to go, let's say tomorrow I book a trip to Australia by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with no one else. I've never been to Australia before. I know a few people in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I'm getting really, really worked up, and I'm about to cancel the flight. And I go to mum to, do one of those reassurance behaviours where it's like, promise me everything will be okay, or promise me this, or promise me that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not acceptable to do it?
No, you don't. It's like gambling then. If you sometimes give in, you will reinforce that behavior even more. Yeah. And that's the way these gambling games are set up. It's like, you have a certain amount of losses and you have a win. Because the winners are always previsible, it just enhances the whole response you have to the win, and it hooks you in even more. If it was predictable that if you play 5 games and every 6th game you'll get a winning lottery ticket or whatnot, far less people would play the game. I know logically a lot of what I say makes no sense, because then you'll just wait to death. But it's the fact that the intervals are not recurrent, or there's an unknown factor there. It's the fact that the amount that you can win is high. It's the same for your OCD. Like, your mom should never ever give in. Should always refer back to the fact that it is a fight against the OCD. It is not you asking, it's the OCD asking, and that you and your mom are a team, and it's not that you're asking something to your mom that your mom is refusing it to you. It's not about you and your mum. It's about the OCD. So yes, not your mum. In that scenario where you're about to go on a flight to Australia, you should go back to, remember, Sam, this is your OCD speaking.
I kind of disagree.
All right, fair play.
Because not that I'm a psychologist.
It doesn't matter. You're the one with lived experience.
Do you not think that if it was going to get me there, it was going to get me to Australia, whatever, if I've got a job over there or something, I don't know, hypothetically, and her reassuring me was going to get me on that flight, would you not think that is...
So it's a scenario, if she does give you the reassurance, you go. If she doesn't, you don't go?
There's a possibility of that.
Because you see what you just did. I don't know. That's what it's all about. You have to discover, in actual terms, not sitting in a sofa and thinking about it. You have to discover in real life that you can deal with it. that's what, not OCD, but most anxieties. That's how you overcome them. It's because the anxiety is in your head, and it is a response to an imagination. It is not a response to reality.
Truth, yeah.
Yeah. So that really embodies what it's all about. It's kind of I don't know. Well, exactly. Go and find out.
And that's the fear of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you argued my point pretty well.
Yeah, but I mean, it takes practice, and also you always have to allow for lapses. Yeah. So I may have said that previously. I may repeat myself, but it's a key thing in anyone, regardless of whether you're engaging in therapy or not. Progress is never linear. Yeah, it looks more like the stock market. Goes up and down, and then there's a crash and goes up again. But ultimately, if you then look at, where was I 10 years ago? Where was I a year ago? You should be on the up. Yeah.
If you stick to your
if you focus on the process rather than awaiting the outcomes, and you trust the process, little changes consistently over time, this brings about big outcomes. So the lapses are good because if, simply put, if every day is a crap day, so let's say you're depressed, and every day you barely can get out of bed, well, another day, another week, you won't notice a change. But if you're doing better, if you actually, your mood's increasing, your energy level's increasing, you're getting more stuff done, even if stuff done is just getting out of bed. If you do that and you have a good, say, 2 or 3 weeks, and then you have a lapse, the lapse only is noticeable because it stands in contrast with the progress you've been making. So even when you have a low day, you could say to yourself, yay, I'm having a low day because I've been doing much better
I can have a rest day.
Yeah. And then also, if you've gone through burnout, depression, a crisis of any sort, you tend to go on in life fearing a repeat of it. People who've been at their worst, or what they consider to be their worst, tend to carry that with them. They tend to, think, oh my God, this, depression that really floored me, and I lost my job, and my marriage went to, help me with a decent word.
Shit.
No, not that one, another one. So, it disintegrated. That fear stays with you when you're better, and just the fact that you have this expectancy of things may be as bad as they used to be has a negative impact on you. Yeah. And so when you go through a lapse, and usually you'll see that the lapse is short-lived, is not as intense as the memory of what you have been through. There's a silver lining to that lapse, because you go, hey, I've had 3 good weeks. I had a shit week. There I go. I had a bad week, and then I picked myself up
I didn't
again.
even clock on, yeah.
And just acknowledge that you've been through a lapse, and you haven't gone back to square one, but ultimately there's learning
to accept it, and then you carry on.
So lapses are an integral part of recovery. Yeah. I will not go as far as say you can't have recovery without a lapse, but for sure I'll say lapses are an integral part of recovery.
I was going to ask you something that's gone from my mind. My mind's not working very well today.
Where are you in your mind? What's happening?
Why do I not seem very present?
No, I just wonder what's going through your mind right now.
I was thinking about that conversation with that lady.
Yeah.
And how kind of interesting it was. And then just after that, I was kind of going through the whole discipline thing of how much can I help myself while you were rambling away talking. I'm joking. It was kind of, how much can I help myself? And again, this conversation I'd had yesterday with a friend was, will I ever grow out of this either? Do I need to help myself, or can I just wait it out and eventually I'll grow out of it? Which would be very nice, but So I've been waiting a while now. It's like, when is this gonna? When am I going to grow out of it? Which is, I don't know if that's how it quite works.
Mm.
Do you not think?
You don't need to put it on the podcast per se, but how do you feel about your OCD? Are you quite saddened by it? Are you a bit tired?
Tired.
You're tired of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes a positive though,
I hear you.
because when I am tired from it, I go, oh, fuck it, I
Mm.
can't be bothered. Or I'll go, okay, and just carry on. But sometimes I have noticed that when I'm absolutely just like dead with it, I just kind of go, I can't, and just leave it. Sometimes, if I'm overdoing it.
So, is it in a sense of I'm fed up of feeling fed up? Or
No,
is
it's not so much fed up. It's
Yeah.
it's fed up of having to do all the things and
Yeah.
have your mind so concentrated on certain things.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm much better than I used to be, but
Yeah.
just having to, the fact that I have to pick up on certain things
Mm.
is tiring. I think.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, it just uses too much of, I think, my mental capacity, which I'd love to use for other things. But it almost feels sometimes like I just cannot stop it.
Mm.
And I think it's very easy for me to, I think myself, I can talk a bit of a big game and be like, I'll get through it,
Mm.
and then it's like, it's pretty it's like, yeah, you just get tired of it after a while. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I kind of notice. And I wonder,
You, since when have you noticed?
just now today, and I think you having gone to LA maybe gave you a taste of there's a big world out there, and you can and should be part of it, and you can and should be more independent, and can and should be more well, independent is the word, financially, but in other kind of meanings as well. And
I think
Yeah.
I think this is what frustrates mum and dad, maybe him too.
yeah,
And I'd noticed when I was in LA is I'm socially not very awkward and find it very easy to speak to people and meet people, even though sometimes I'm not the most outgoing person. I can kind of be quite like shy when first meeting people. I can be quite shy, but I can kind of walk in and just talk and waffle on about really anything. I'm not really afraid to speak about certain things. I just kind of, I'm like, yeah, see where it goes. And like, I knew the names of everyone at the hotel, got along with everyone. Everyone I kind of met, I didn't have like a disagreement with. Everyone seemed to very much like me. And Dad said at one point, he was like, everyone just likes you. And I know that that's something that Mum's mentioned in the past, that I do find it so easy to get along with people, but I kind of hide myself away because of OCD and because I can't bother to, go and sit at the pub or something, which I think is fine personally, because I don't want to go sit at the pub all the time. But in terms of locking myself in, the house and the road that I live on, and that kind of not really leaving there.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a conversation with recently. He came in and, what were you moaning to me about? I don't know what that meant. Jamie, yeah, and he was saying that he was saying, why don't you see any of your friends anymore? Why don't you see this person, that person? You don't see these people. You used to be the man. And I was like, yeah, but then also like everyone's kind of grown up as well. If this was happening when I was younger, it would be a bit of a different story. But I feel like I lived a whole kind of childhood. I was a real bad man. So yeah, it's weird. Got a bit real now. Jesus Christ.
But is it?
Jamie's been
Yeah, well,
What are you thinking about now?
What I've always said to you is that there's
I feel like that's really thrown you.
It has.
thrown me. Well, it's the difficulty, isn't it? Is I think there's work to be done still. I think you can, you need to and you can push ahead.
Again, discipline. I know.
No, but maybe you should have some accountability. And I said to you that it would be good to have, and I said to you as a condition, I said, I want you to be in therapy, even if it's just once a month, but I want you to have a decent clinical psychologist who takes you through the paces and.
But even with for anyone listening, I don't know if you still are listening at this point. The pills that I'm still on, I want to come off them. But because it's like I can't be bothered to be on these anymore. I want to just get off them. But the probability of things going downhill will be very high if I do.
But are you a bit sad? Like when I read your eyes or try to read your eyes, I would think, these, I wonder if you're a bit sad, or it's just me kind of projecting my worries about you onto you.
I'm not looking you in the eye now. I wouldn't say I'm tired. I'm tired of it. It's like I feel there's a lot I can do and want to do, and places I need to see, people I need to meet, and I feel like I'm the only person holding myself back, or the OCD is the only thing that's really holding me back, because otherwise, if I didn't have a fear of being sick, I would kind of be unstoppable. I'd be like a superhero.
Sam, I've always told you, I've always said you have.
I think that's why people get frustrated with me, though.
Yeah.
My friends, my parents, you.
If you were indeed, if you didn't have much to offer, but everybody has something to offer, but you have a lot to offer yourself, your loved ones, the world, myself, vicariously, humanity,
Yeah.
So, and I'm not talking about, moving mountains, but you have something about you, which indeed you get along with people, now you've set up this whole podcast. So, I think you still need to work on that OCD.
I think that's the thing, is I've still got to work on it. It's like I've still got, it's almost like I need to just put in, but I know if I do, when I was consistently doing mindfulness or meditating, whatever you want to call it, I knew I felt better. But I haven't had the discipline to put myself back into that spot and be doing it every day. When I should. I've had the time. I should.
I mean, the thing is, you're in pain, aren't you? Like the OCD has a hold over you. And so if you're suffering, if you're struggling, you might as well get something for it. So you're not going to struggle more. It's not going to be harder per se if you want to overcome it and really, indeed, are disciplined and have some accountability and someone to support you and keep a certain rhythm going by having fortnightly or even monthly sessions or weekly. But it's not my place to say what you should do. But I do think that would be good for you, and you can really you can get yourself into a place where you might still feel some discomfort, but not to the extent as it is now, and be the best version of yourself.
Wow. You made Jamie fall asleep. Should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, sure. I think we wrapped up a while ago, but
thank you for listening to the waiting list. And if you've got to this point and we haven't deleted anything, good on you.